Hello, friends. Today we will have murder, lies, and a missing deer head. So let's start. Off Range Road 132, a broad driveway leads past an edge of trees into a yard where once there stood a modest white house and a tidy farm. 8th of December 2013, the first firefighters arrived around 7:30 a.m. when the family who lived in the house would usually have been up having breakfast, getting ready for work, and so on. On that morning, 16 volunteer firefighters from town and the farms around, local people who knew as soon as they heard the location, whose house was in flames, whose lives were disappearing into thick plumes of smoke in the winter sky. Jeff was the first to call Jason Klaus that morning. He knew Jason. He also knew Jason's parents, Gordon and Sandy, and Jason's sister, Monica. Jason was at home in his trailer across the property when the phone rang. After arriving, firemen noted the family's chocolate lab, Kila, lay dead outside, a halo of blood around her head. There were 2 bullet casings near her body, and a short distance away, another drop of blood in the snow. Near the burning house sat a red gas can, still 2/3 full and partly melted by the heat. The RCMP arrived about 30 minutes after the firefighters did, but there was little that could be done. The house was totally destroyed. Dumping water on the fire would only make investigation more difficult, and in those temperatures and at the time of the year, the wreckage could remain frozen for months, and it was decided the best thing was to let it burn. The police started looking around and they saw 2 9mm shell casings and the killed dog. It had been shot. And later, when the flames died down and the investigation could begin proper inside the Klaus home, there would be 3 bodies. Gordon Klaus attended school in Castor. He was a sportsman and played a variety of sports during his school years. Sandy and Gordon, they were high school sweethearts. They were blessed with their first daughter, Lisa, on March 1971. And after that, in a year, Sandy and Gordon were married. They were blessed with their second daughter, Monica, in 1973. And unfortunately, that year, they lost their lovely Lisa in a tragic farm accident. Shortly after that, they moved to another farm where they have lived all these years. Gordon had a passion for hunting and enjoyed fishing. He was a real prankster as well. He had the best sense of humor and loved to laugh. Sandy, she worked as an operator and then worked at school hospital in Red Deer. She also found time for playing cards, hunting and fishing with family and friends, and laughing at Gordon's practical jokes. As the children grew older, looking to start their own careers, Sandy also decided to expand her skills and found a second career outside of the farm at hospital in Castor. She absolutely loved working at the hospital. So Monica was the second oldest of 3 children. She was active and really responsible. Monica was greatly respected by her co-workers for her excellent hard work and dedication. She also had a love for photography and took many photos of the farm and family. Monica, along with her parents, were deer hunters. She often took her brother Jason as her date to work functions and parties, and she planned to do the same that Christmas. They also had a son named Jason. He lived his entire life on that land, just as his father had done. The farm was a short drive from Castor, a town of less than 100 people, a dot on the map, and an hour and a half east of Red Deer. Jason's trailer was a 3-minute drive from his parents' house, the same land, but accessible by its own long driveway. Though Jason was at his parents' house every day and ate most of his meals there, the trailer afforded him space and privacy, distance for partying, and bringing women home, the things his parents didn't like in their house. He didn't get a salary, but his parents paid all his bills and took care of everything he needed. Sandy even did his laundry, and when Jason wanted money for drinks at the bar or to take women out, Gordon gave it to him if he asked. So it was on the morning of the 8th of December. Neighbors of the Klauses saw the fire and they called the fire department at 7:15 a.m. They also rang Jason, letting him know that his parents' house was burning. After getting the call, Jason Klaus sped to his parents' house. He jumped out of his truck, screaming and fighting to get down the driveway, while neighbors blocked his way, holding him back in a way that was kind and sad and firm. No one knew for sure that Gordon and Sandy and Monica were dead, but the house was destroyed and there was no sign the family had gone anywhere. It was clear that no one inside could have survived because the house was engulfed in flames and mostly collapsed. It was obvious from the start that this wasn't an accident. The bodies were discovered in the house. Gordon and Monica were found, but Sandra, her body, was never found or identified. She is presumed to have been incinerated in the heat of the fire. Monica's dog was also never found. And Jason, he was only thinking of a very valuable deer head that was in the house, and he told about it the whole time. Gordon and Sandy's house had several mounted deer heads, but the whitetail in the living room was special. Sandy had spotted the whitetail while the family hunted near Coronation in 2007, and Jason killed it. He liked to brag that he'd been offered $10,000 and a new truck for it once, and though the head grew bigger and more impressive with every telling, it had earned him $250 and the title of White-tailed Deer Hunter of the Year from Alberta Outdoorsman magazine. Rob Kropp was the lead investigator on the file, and he called Jason Klaus in for an interview as RCMP. They met on Tuesday. It was 2 days after the fire. Darkness already falling on one of the shortest days of the year.
And the only reason I'm thinking it's foul play is because of what was inside the house, which was a deer head of mine that was worth a lot of money. Like we're talking around the 200,000. It was a real big deer head. Like it was one of the biggest ones around. Like it was, not far from the world record kind of deer head. And that's the only thing I can think of that somebody would come in to steal or try to steal. But I don't know if that stuff burns in the fire. I don't know if there'll be proof of antlers. I don't know.
As the investigation was ramping up, it seemed like only possible motive, and Jason, who was emotional grieving, became angry at the RCMP, who seemed to be dragging their feet. And when they told him they hadn't found Sandra, his mother, he said that they were lying to him and he refused to understand this information. It's interesting to know that Gordon's car was missing from the scene and it would be found 3 days after the fire on the other side of Castor. But a few things about Jason seem strange, and one was that he seemingly knew that the truck was missing before anybody else knew the truck was missing. He also knew that a gun had been used before the police even found shell casings. Jason had a good answer for how he knew all this stuff from ghosts. So, weeks passed, Jason was sole member of the family and he began telling people something very interesting. He told 4 separate people, 3 of them related to the family, aunts, uncles. One of them was an arson investigator for the insurance crowd, that he had seen ghosts and they told him what had happened that night. All his stories were different. He never told the same story twice. He would say that he saw his sister Monica, or he saw a couple ghosts, and Monica was one of those ghosts. He said that when he arrived at the burning house, he saw spirits at the edge of the driveway, and they spoke to him, telling him they knew who the killer was, but, don't worry about it. Don't even speak to the cops about this, and just focus on the farm. And they even told him the killer came in and shot them all in the head before setting the house on fire. And the victims, they were all dead before the place went up. They said the killer used a 9mm handgun and had thrown it in the river. Not only that, they gave him a description of the killer, someone younger than Jason with a bird living in Castor. This guy apparently had mental health issues and he was known to Klaus' family.
Man, there's Monica's talked to you. Your dad has talked to you. That lady in Drayton has talked to you. And this black woman has really filled you in with a whole lot of unanswered questions.
I know everything.
Did this guy go with the intent to kill your family? He had a gun, or was it a gun that he got from your house?
Oh no, it was his own. He did go there with intent, but I think he went there just to make sure he was going to get away with that deer head.
Definitely what? The ghosts were telling him change his whereabouts. He was at the bar, or maybe he was with friends, or of course Jason kept his nose clean. In his first interviews after the fire, he had talked about American hunter who'd been in the area that fall and who he hinted may have returned to steal the deer head and murdered his family. Investigators flew to interview the hunters, to that guys, but the man said they hadn't seen or even heard of the deer head, and their passports confirmed they had never returned to the country after the fall hunting trip.
RCMP Major Crime Unit investigators believe the fire at the Klaus residence in Castor on December 8, 2013 was set intentionally. Although the cause and origin is still under investigation, police can share that on December 13, the Calgary Medical Examiner's Office confirmed that the family dog that had been found deceased by first responders at the scene had suffered a fatal gunshot wound. It is believed that the death of Gordon and Monica Klaus are as a result of a homicide, and today Sandra Klaus has not been located. our investigation suggests that she was also the victim of a homicide. Sandra Klaus remains have not yet been located.
So back to the ghost stories and the real line. The police led the descriptions to a guy named Josh Frank who lived in Castor. He was a welder for a pipeline and he had known Jason almost his whole life. He was questioned but denied having anything to do with it, and he passed a polygraph test. So the investigation returned to Jason. All the stories and rumors about him led to him being more and more of a suspect in his own family's murder. And he also refused to take a polygraph. In the community, stories circulated, rumors spread and grew, but for the people who loved Jason and knew him best, it wasn't easy to consider he could have killed his family.
Gord, Sandy, Monica Klaus.
No, I did not. And I would gladly take a lie detector test, and I did not kill them. I did not start the fire. I don't know how they got killed or murdered or anything else.
Should I believe you?
I would hope you would believe me. Yes, you should believe me. Yes. And for someone to accuse me of that, it doesn't make me mad. It doesn't make me sad. It hurts. It really. No, and the reporter asked me that too, and no, it had nothing to do with this fire or whatever. However they died, being murdered, being stabbed, being whatever they were. I don't know. I don't know how they died yet. I don't know if they felt the fire. I don't know.
Give me one reason why I should believe you.
One reason to believe me, because I lived for that family farm. Okay? I've been there 38 years on that farm. Had breakfast, dinner, supper. Yeah, Dad and I would butt heads once in a while. Mom and I would butt heads once in a while. Monica and I, she always looked out for my girlfriends. She would never like any of my girlfriends. But there was never a time where I would not want them in my life. For any reason. Like that, I know that's a question you have to ask me, but
Jason, if what you just told me right now is the truth,
okay, go ahead.
You have nothing to worry about.
Could you kill your parents?
If what you told me is the truth, you have nothing to worry about.
I don't have nothing to worry about.
The police decided to bring in someone, and that someone was Mr. Big. These were some guys who maybe wanted to store some things on Jason's farm, and they would pay top dollars for it. The RCMP had been running Mr. Big operations for about 20 years. Elaborate stings where undercover officers posed as part of a criminal organization headed by Mr. Big, a powerful man who is able to make police investigations disappear, usually with the help of a dying uncle willing to confess to a serious crime before he dies. The uncle just needs very detailed information and some physical evidence to make his deathbed confession believable. In return, Mr. Big demands only one thing: the truth. He met these guys in April 2014, 4 months after the fire, and they would go to strip clubs and bars together. They'd been the new best friends, and he would even join these guys on some illegal activities like protection rackets. Cops were setting it up to make it look, so truly to Jason. He was so happy to have some new friends who he thought were like real cool dudes, and best of all, these new friends of Jason's have an uncle dying of cancer in the hospital who was already 1 foot in the grave. Well, maybe he would be prepared to tell the police anything they wanted to hear. So he would confess to anything so long as his dying uncle's daughter, she got some money. So Jason's new friends said him to tell exactly what happened in all details, and they will pass it on the dying uncle and the investigation will disappear. So Jason, he was quote licking his chops at that prospect, so he was trying to make himself look like the prettiest girl at prom, decided to tell these undercover cops a little bit about what actually happened that night to his family. He told them he had plotted the murder, but he didn't pull. Now the person who pulled the triggers was Josh, who the ghosts were pointing at. So Jason invited Josh to meet his new friends, and Josh, he was too happy and was trying to impress Mr. Big by telling him how he murdered an innocent family.
About you at all, I've got a way to help him out. He's met me out. I don't know if he's told you. I've got an uncle dying of cancer. Okay, he's
sorry to hear that.
But he ran pretty long and hard his whole life. He's got a granddaughter, and it's got not much. So somehow, like if the granddaughter was able to be, a little help, but that's beside the point.
I told him exactly what happened, so that's all. How we planned it. Remember how we did everything?
Yeah.
So nobody lies to me, and I get everything right. Okay.
You ask him whatever.
You go over there and have to talk to the book. Jump up front.
Betcha.
The sooner we get this done, the better.
Yeah, no, I agree, buddy.
Josh.
Yeah.
Okay. Just
Todd, right?
Todd. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. And you can, if you don't like anything I'm asking you, there's the door handle. You can fuck off anytime. And I got a question. I am dying to ask you after what he told me. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll tell you when it's coming because you're gonna die laughing when it's coming. Okay.
Okay.
The deal is, mom, pop, sister gone.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, went into the house.
No. Start back how it came about, so I can get it through to Matt. Because I'll explain to you after. But there's a reason for my asking, like to start right at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because
You just want to know.
I'll put it this way: if I said to you that Goldilocks woke up and the bed wasn't right and she ran out, you'd go, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah.
But if I started the story at the beginning of her walking through the woods, then I can relay that to Uncle.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. Okay.
Okay.
So. This whole thing happened in February. December. You're right. Do you remember the date?
December 8th. He proposed this to me to go in and take out the family.
How did he say it to you?
He said that he was he had been writing some checks on the farm in California in his dad's signature, and he was looking into buying some cattle. So he was going to be uncovered right away and cut out of everything on the farm. So he kind of had to go away. After he proposed this to me, he said, "If you back out, be watching over your back because there might be a bullet coming your way."
Did you think he was serious?
You never know.
You never know. Did you take it as an actual threat from him?
No, I didn't take it as an actual, like, I'm gonna do this. It's just, yeah, it's always a possibility.
Yeah.
So I went in, let the dog out, went into the mom and dad's room, took care of them, sister's room. Then I went back and did all three again just to make sure. Flipped the light on.
You flipped the light on?
Oh, yeah. I didn't want to miss.
Yeah. You didn't want to. Did anybody wake up?
Monica, after the first two shots, but she didn't even have time to get out of bed because it was boom boom. And I didn't want them to know what hit him. Like, I'm not a fucking animal.
No.
Well, I guess I kind of am now. Found the avgas in the garage where he told me it would be. Started the fire. Had to shoot the dog because the dog was coming at me when I lit the fire. In hindsight, I probably should have thrown it into the house, but it's 20/20 hindsight, right?
Mm.
So at this point, I had the truck running, and then I just walked out my same tracks into the truck. Met Jason, got dropped off. Yeah. And,
Okay, you ready for my question?
Yeah.
How did you pass the lie detector test?
Well, I figured out that the fidget butt pad that you sit on, when you took, as they ask you 10 questions, 2 of them are truth, 3 of them are predetermined that you're going to lie to these questions, and then a couple of them are about the case. So they'd ask you your 2 truth questions, the case questions, and then the questions that you're supposed to lie to them to. And I just gave an extra fidget with my ass on the butt pad. It's a fight or flight response, the guy told me. When your body goes to lie, it's a natural thing.
How did you learn this?
I just figured it out while I was sitting there.
Really?
Yeah.
And then how did you light it up?
I had a torch lighter. I've still got the lighter, actually.
Yeah. Where's it at?
It's in my truck. I've got it here.
Do you? Do you understand how I can help you? Like, you understand? And I've never asked you for nothing.
Nope.
I'm not making you any promises.
Yeah.
What made you want to talk? Like, just talk to me freely like this?
Well, if you're trying to help Jane, if it helps Jane, it helps me.
Okay. Have you ever killed anybody else in your life?
Nope.
Never?
Never.
You got balls of steel, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Cool.
So would it be safe to say you're a stone cold killer?
I guess.
Do you feel remorseful?
Little bit.
Just a little?
Yeah.
Do you think they got what they deserved?
I know Gordon did. I think Sandy didn't, but you can't.
And it was all over because Jason told you he had wrote checks, forged his signature, and it was going to come out. And then he was scared he's going to be cut out.
And plus, I think they were talking to cut him right out of the farm, too.
To work and to later hold up in court, Mr. Big operations have to not only give a suspect a chance to confess, but also to reveal incriminating information that would only be known to anyone but the killer. And Josh drew a map of the house and gave Mr. Big the lighter he said he'd used to start the fire. After Josh went over what happened several times, he and Jason led the undercover officers to the ditch where they had thrown the keys to Gordon's truck, and the officers searched the grass with a metal detector until they found them. Josh also led his new best friends to the murder weapon. Josh said they never settled on an exact payment, but Jason said that it could be up to $50,000. Josh had a torn tendon in his elbow at the time, which he thought would convince police he couldn't have fired a gun. It wasn't long after that Jason and George, that they were a pair of not clever guys, and that they had just confessed to the police. They were both arrested on the 15th of August 2014 and charged with the murders of Gordon, Sandra, and Monica. Both Jason and Joshua point the finger at the other one, saying they were the real killer. In court, each testified against the other and tried to take back their earlier confessions, saying their Mr. Big statements were lies, their confessions were lies, their other statements to police were lies, and that at times they'd even lied about lying. The night was cold, but the little white farmhouse of Range Road 132 was warm and light. Gordon Klaus was still tired and weak from an operation, and he rested while his wife, Sandy, she made supper. Monica and Jason put up the Christmas tree beside Jason's prized deer head in the living room. They had hamburger soup and fried potatoes for supper, Sandy's lemon meringue pie for dessert. There was Carlin on TV. Later, Jason called Josh Frank and told him that it was time. They stayed at the Thirsty Beware until after 3, drinking and joking with Amanda and a couple of women from town. When the bar closed and they went their separate ways, George to his room in the Cosmopolitan Hotel and Jason towards home. But they met again across town half an hour later. Josh climbing into Jason's black with the 9mm Roger. Jason had given him the gun already wiped down and loaded and ready. It wasn't far to the farm, then down the long driveway to the house. Josh, he went to Garden and Sandy's room first, turning on the light and pulling the trigger. Then he walked to Monica's room and fired again. 2 shots for each person to make sure they were dead, fast so they wouldn't know what hit them. I'm not an animal, he would say later. Oh, well, I guess I kind of am now. Jason was waiting in the truck, or maybe he was standing right there alongside. After it was done, Josh got the gas can and poured some out. A flare of his Button's lighter, transforming liquid into flame and a house into fire. They left Garden struck by the Battle River, and then Jason drove Josh back to Custer, leaving him in the dark just outside town. Jason went home to the farm and back to the trailer on land that had been his family's for generations, waiting for the phone call, for the knock at the door he knew was coming. They were both found guilty of first-degree murder and both sentenced to life without parole for 25 years. So, friends, thank you for watching this video. Hope that you have enjoyed this case, and please be safe and see you the next time. Bye.